Hello there. Thank you for joining me again on another episode of Your Doctor in COVID. I'm Dr. Mahendra Carpen, Head of Medical Services and Cardiology at the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation. Today we'll continue our conversation as we delve more and more in depth to various topics as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic that has gripped the world. And us in Guyana, we have had 4,000 plus cases of positive patients, and we have also by now had more than 130 persons dying who are known to be COVID positive. So we started this program and we wanted to entertain your questions to be able to provide answers and clarification on points of confusion. And remember, if you have any questions or comments that you would like to send, you can send by WhatsApp at 620-6275 or email at docandcovid@gmail.com. For this conversation, I'll take my mask off. There's no one else around me, so I'm not at risk and I'm not putting anyone else at risk. So here is a question that came in from one of our viewers. And it starts out with a little scenario. This is someone who was positive for COVID-19 and was put on home isolation. During that period, this person was very weak, but is now better and back at work. The patient would like a CD4 count test to check their immune system. So that is the first question. And the second question is quite intriguing. And the question is, can inhaling steam daily kill the virus in the nostril and throat? So these are two very different questions, but nevertheless, we will try to answer them before the end of today's conversation. So I apologize from the beginning that the discussion on CD4 count is a little bit heavy, but I'll try to make it simple for those who are listening or those who are viewing so that we could all understand what is meant by these various concepts. So let us look at the concept of immunity. There are two main categories in which we can put immunity. One is your innate immunity that is there all the time, and that is made up of cells such as your macrophages, your neutrophils. Everyone who has done a blood test would have had probably something called a complete blood count, which includes the red blood cells, which takes takes oxygen to the rest of the body, the white blood cells, which fights off infection, and other components. So your innate immunity is what is always present, versus your adaptive immunity, which manifests and is produced when you are exposed to possible infection or things that can cause harm. So there's some overlap between innate and adaptive immunity, but those are the basic difference or concepts to bear in mind. The innate immunity is what is there all the time. The adaptive immunity is what develops in response to an infecting or an invading agent. In order to answer this question a little bit more clearly, we need to know what is the CD4 count. CD4 cells are white blood cells that play an important role in the immune system. CD just means cluster description or cluster designation, and the number 4 is, this is the fourth designation. Your CD4 cell count gives you an indication of the health of your immune system, your body's natural defense system against pathogens, which are like viruses and bacteria, etc., and other kinds of illness. CD4 cells are sometimes called T cells, T lymphocytes, or helper cells. And we will look at two types of T cells. One is the helper T cell, which is a CD4 counts, or the CD4 positive cells, and then the natural killer T cell, which are the CD8 cells. The CD4 or T4 cells, or T lymphocytes, are a type of lymphocytes which are white blood cells with CD4 molecule specific protein on its surface. So there's a special protein that is on the surface that helps this particular cell to do its job of facilitating the destruction of invading particles like viruses and bacteria, etc. It leads the attack against infections. A normal person without any underlying condition will have a CD4 count of between 500 to 1600 counts per microliter. Okay? And there's also an important ratio that we look at between the CD4 and CD8. But those are all technical aspects of CD4 and CD8 cell counts that may not be as relevant to today's discussion. In order to do diagnostic studies, we look at the CD4 and CD8 counts mainly. A decrease in CD4 counts and decreased CD4 to CD8 ratio is associated with increased manifestations of disease. The T helper or CD4 cells are about 800 to 1,000 cells per microliter, and the T suppressor cells are about 300 to 1,000 cells per microliter. The ratio we look for is that which is greater than 1. So let us look at an important infective association with the CD4 count. And this is mainly seen in HIV disease. Patients who have HIV are at particular risk for developing low CD4 counts. And this is what predispose them or put them at risk for developing all kinds of other secondary infections, some of which can prove to be fatal. The HIV, or the virus itself, attacks the CD4 positive cells and therefore reduces the body's ability to fight off infections. So that's one of the major conditions that produces an immunocompromised state in patients. The other big group that produces immunocompromised states in patients is cancers. All types of cancers can cause immunocompromised states in patients. And if we look at patients with COVID-19, the group of patients who have positive COVID-19 and look at those as it correlates to those with cancer versus those without cancer, you can see specific correlations. For example, those who are COVID-19 patients without cancer, they do much better than those who have COVID-19 but have positive cancers. And this is because, or it is thought that it's due to the fact that they have decreased levels of CD4 cell count, as well as other reduction in immune ability with their lymphocytes, as well as their albumin and globulin ratio. Other risk factors that work against these patients are things like older age, male gender, as well as other comorbid conditions that may be present in these patients. The CD4 cells in COVID-19 help the B cells to actually produce antibodies and help the CD8 or the natural killer cells to kill the virus when it infects the cells. The sicker COVID-19 patients have affected CD4 positive cells, CD8 positive cells, as well as B cells. These are all affected. And how are they affected? They are impaired, they are overactivated, or they do not respond appropriately. One encouraging fact in this is that emerging studies have suggested that all or a majority of people with COVID-19 develop a strong and broad T-cell response, and some have a memory type. And this is quite important when we look at the potential for long-term immunity and the potential for usefulness of things like vaccines. In one of our next episodes, we will discuss the various vaccines that are currently being looked at in the world and to see what type of response they produce. I can tell you that some of the main front runners in the vaccine race have shown that persons who were vaccinated have gone on to produce good responses in their T cells, their B cells, and other immune factors. And so that has hope for how we are going to create immunity in the world as we move forward in this COVID-19 pandemic. So that was a little bit heavy, but let us look at a different question posed by the same viewer. And this relates to steam inhalation. And I'd prefer to address this looking more at what the myths are and what the actual facts are. So here is the first question or myth that people are running around with. Can regularly rinsing your nose with saline help prevent infection with coronavirus? That is the question. If you rinse your nose regularly with saline. Here is the answer. No, there is no evidence that regularly rinsing the nose with saline has protected people from infection with coronavirus. There is some limited evidence that regularly rinsing the nose with saline can help people recover more quickly from the common cold, not coronavirus. However, regularly rinsing the nose has not been shown to prevent other respiratory infections. So that is one of our misbeliefs that hopefully it's answered. Here is the next big one as it relates to steam. Steam inhalation is an effective treatment against COVID-19. That's the claim. Fact check, that is false. Steam inhalation does not cure COVID-19 and is not a safe treatment as it may cause serious burns. No matter how hot the steam is, it will not reach the virus present in the cells of the infected individual. So please don't think that steam will kill the virus. Here is the next point that we want to discuss. Taking a hot bath does not prevent the new coronavirus disease. Taking a hot bath will not prevent you from catching COVID-19. Your normal body temperature remains around 36.5 to 37 degrees Celsius, regardless of the temperature of your bath or shower. Actually, taking a hot bath with extremely hot water can be harmful as it can burn you. The best way to protect yourself against COVID-19 is by frequently cleaning your hands. By doing this, you eliminate viruses that may be on your hands and avoid infection that could occur when touching your eyes, mouth, and nose. So please don't take a very hot bath that can burn yourself thinking that you are helping your body fight COVID-19. Another question that we need to answer. Can spraying alcohol or chlorine all over your body kill the new coronavirus? The answer is no. Spraying alcohol or chlorine all over your body will not kill viruses that have already entered your body. Spraying such substances can be harmful to clothes or mucous membrane, that is your eyes and your mouth. Be aware that both alcohol and chlorine can be useful to disinfect surfaces, but they need to be used under appropriate recommendations, not to be sprayed on your body. And the last one, which is probably not as big a deal as the rest, can gargling mouthwash protect you from infection with the new coronavirus? No, there is no evidence that using mouthwash will protect you from infection with the new coronavirus. Some brands of mouthwash can eliminate certain microbes for a few minutes in the saliva in your mouth. However, this does not mean they protect you from COVID-19 infection. So remember to send us your questions at 620-6275 on WhatsApp, or you can send your email to docandcovid@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us.